After a 48-0 victory over the Kent State Golden Flashes last week, and one that even cracked a smile on the face of head coach Nick Saban, the Alabama Crimson Tide now turns its attention to its homecoming matchup against the Kentucky Wildcats this weekend at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Coming to you live from the beautiful Courtyard Marriott Hotel in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, this is 16 and Counting, the Countdown Preview Show. I'm joined here each and every week by the man of Texas, Ivan L. White. I am yours truly, Stephen M. Smith. And Ivan, Nick Saban smiling. Is that usual in Tuscaloosa?
Well, after you pick up a very big win in Oxford against Ole Miss and you shut out the next game at home in Bryant-Denny, Nick Saban's going to crack a lot of smiles after those performances.
This week, the Crimson Tide facing the Kentucky Wildcats. Now, head coach Mark Stoops, the Cats 2-2 on the year, picked up a 17-10 victory over South Carolina. Coach Stoops, great in recruiting, but time for him to really put those pieces into play when you talk about winning consistent football games. And one of those pieces, as we get into Kentucky's impact players, Stanley Boom Williams, the running back, who has 464 yards rushing this year, 2 touchdowns, averaging 116 yards per game. What should Alabama expect, or what could Alabama look to see when you talk about Mr. Boom?
Well, besides seeing one of the greatest nicknames in all of college football today, they're going to see a backfield that's been much improved over the previous 2 weeks. Against New Mexico State and South Carolina over the previous 2 weeks, they've rushed for over 500 yards and 7 touchdowns combined. This is a backfield that's been finding their grain, finding their water, finding whatever they need to do, whatever mojo they need to find to get the run game going. They've been getting it to click, but against an Alabama Crimson Tide defensive line that's been known to stop even the best in the country, it's going to be difficult.
Stanley Boom Williams has also Benjamin Snell Jr. joining him in that backfield. Benjamin Snell, 5 rushing touchdowns. And of course, JoJo Kemp, who was the guy for much of last year. Kemp's been injured a couple of games, but he also has 2 rushing touchdowns. At the quarterback position, because you have to talk about it, Kentucky has Steven Johnson Jr., who's thrown for 490 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. You're throwing up against an Alabama secondary that likes to pick the ball off, and an Alabama defensive front that does the same thing. The confidence, but most importantly, the decision making. How can it be crisp for Steven Johnson?
In this game, he's going to have to make sure he's not afraid to do the dink and dump game. He's going to have to make sure he's not afraid to do the check down route. I know a lot of quarterbacks get criticized. They do a lot of check downs. You're seeing that a lot more in the NFL nowadays. But I think that's the right move to do for a quarterback. If you don't see anything downfield, don't take the risk. Keep the ball. And as you can see, he's only had a limited amount of turnovers this year. So if he can keep doing that, that's the best thing he can do against an Alabama Crimson Tide defense.
No, Ivan, correct me if I'm wrong. You played defensive line in high school, right?
That's correct.
So since you're playing defensive line in high school, there's a defensive lineman on this impact players list who's number 3. Break down that defensive lineman.
Defensive lineman, that would be DENZEL WARE for me. DENZEL WARE is a player that's young. He's a redshirt freshman, but he's a lot of talent, a lot of skill set. Last week against South Carolina, he had 2 sacks, and for a redshirt freshman to have 2 sacks in an SEC play game, it's a very big strides to make in such a small amount of time. So I'm looking for him to make a lot of strides again this week. I know he's going to be against a lot of talent, and Alabama Crimson Tide do have that on the offensive side of the ball, but still, he should shine this weekend.
DENZEL WARE, as Ivan mentioned, 4.5 tackles for loss this year, 3 sacks, 2 quarterback hurries, and also 17 tackles for Mr. Ware getting into that backfield and creating some havoc. Well, the Kentucky Wildcats look to not only compete, but really kind of push Alabama this week on the Crimson Tide's homecoming, parade, festivities, all of that taking place here in Tuscaloosa this week. As we flip to our prediction time, we start with the man of Texas. It's Kentucky, it's Alabama. No, it's not Western Kentucky, but it's an SEC opponent taking on the Crimson Tide. Ivan, take it away.
In this contest, I think Kentucky shows up a lot better than they did against Florida. I know they put up less than 100 yards on both rushing and passing in that contest, but this is still a defense that's just as talented, if not even more talented than that Florida defense. So I think the Crimson Tide come out on top. I think it's going to be 38-10 final score. The Wildcats come out with an L in this one, and Crimson Tide look to move forward.
Ivan White's got 38-10 in favor of Alabama. I'm going with 42-6 in favor of the Crimson Tide. Well, folks, Alabama, Kentucky this weekend, Saturday, October 1st, 2016 at Bryant-Denny Stadium. The parade is scheduled to take place at 1 p.m. Central Time as Alabama looks to improve to 5-0 this season against Kentucky. Game will kick off at 6 p.m. Central Time. For all of us here at Touchdown Alabama Magazine, he's Ivan White. I am Stephen M. Smith. Enjoy the game, folks. And until next time, So long, everybody.
And roll tide.
Roll Tide.